The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
The Chicago Bears, are the number one seed in the NFC, making Sunday at Lambeau Field the biggest game between these two teams in over a decade.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast.
After the Packers went in and took care of business against the Detroit Lions, the Chicago Bears went to Philadelphia and took care of their own business. They ran it down the throats of the Philadelphia Eagles. Absolutely bludgeoned that team. And I'm telling you this right now. That Philly team they are on the precipice of a spiral. How do I know that? We've seen them do it. In 2023, that team, they were riding high. What were they, 10-1? And they fell apart. They fell apart because dissension in the ranks. It's not a well-coached team by the head coach. I don't know what Nick Sirianni does in Philadelphia. But the Bears, by virtue of that win, are now atop the NFC standings. Now, forget for the moment that by the underlying metrics, my favorites, DVOA, they are an average to below average team. If you include weighted DVOA, coming into the week, they were 15th. I believe the latest DVOA numbers does not have the new the Eagles game, for example, built into it, because that is going to push their DVOA up. I assume the Packers' performance on Thursday is also going to push their DVOA up. The Packers opened as 6.5-point favorites against the Bears for a reason. They are the favorites. They deserve to be the favorites. But we haven't seen a game with this much on the line since 2013, when in the final game of the season in Chicago, Aaron Rodgers threw the ball to Randall Cobb on 4th down. That was Rodgers gets out, floats it, Cobb caught, touchdown. These are the stakes. And we talked last week about how it doesn't actually matter if the Bears are as good as those underlying numbers. The Packers have two opportunities to show that, but the Bears are going to get two opportunities against the Packers. And we saw last year, that was a bad Bears team and a pretty good Packers team. And Chicago gave them everything they could handle in both games. Now, Jordan Love goes out in the Week 17 game. That's Malik Willis for more than a half. Josh Jacobs didn't play in that game. Christian Watson gets hurt in that game. And it still took a last-second field goal where the Packers forgot how to play defense on the final snap to get that one across the finish line. But it also took a blocked field goal against Caleb Williams in the first game to win that one. The Packers have done much better this year in the division, have not lost a division game to date, swept the Detroit Lions after struggling in the division last year. The only win they got was by Carl Brooks's fingernail. That's not been the case this year. And right now in the NFC, everything is wide open. Like, this Chicago Bears team is going to go to the playoffs. And the way they play, they create explosives on offense. They can run it on anybody. And they create turnovers on defense. That is a formula for variance. They could go in and beat anybody, including the Green Bay Packers, this weekend. And what you don't want to have to do is go to Chicago and give them another opportunity to play the variance game. You have to take care of business at home. Now, I think the Packers are clearly the more balanced, the more well-rounded team. I think Jordan Love is playing at a level as high as anyone in the NFL at the quarterback position the last few weeks. He is dialed in. Matt LaFleur letting him go play quarterback. That this was an opportunity to let it all hang out. That they were going to go on 4th down. The same message, the same kind of message that Dan Campbell gave to his team last year that we saw on Netflix. Hey, we're going to go on every fourth down. That was the Packers' mantra. Them going for it, 2 plays to win the game at the end. They took both. That was not the Matt LaFleur we've seen. Tyler Dunn wrote about this a little bit, that there was last year, according to at least one player, that there was some coaching not to lose. If you've had eyeballs, you don't have to be in that locker room to see that has happened. It happened in 2024. It happened before that. It happened in 2023. It happened in 2021. It happened in 2020. Less in 2020, I would say. Certainly in 2021. Certainly in 2023 at times. But what we saw on Thursday was double moves. Hey, you're gonna play press man coverage every rep. All right. We got something for you. No, the Bears aren't going to do that. But the Packers had a plan to go in and be aggressive. To come out firing. To come out hot. With their piss hot, damn it. That phrase is never going to go away. Never. And the Bears are going to come in feeling like, hey, we can do this. We just did it. Now, Bears fans will tell you in the most important win of the Bears franchise in the last 10 years. Okay, maybe not. Maybe 5 years. Was beating Malik Willis at the end of the game. Congratulations. But they're coming in playing with a tremendous amount of confidence. They're also coming off a coach taking off his shirt in the locker room, much like the Sam Darnold celebration after the Vikings beat the Packers last year. And that Vikings team has cratered since then. Now, I'm not saying this Bears team is going to do the same, but that's by far the biggest win of their season. Now they got to get back up, come to Lambeau, and play this Packers team that is going to be ready for them. If you don't think this Packers team remembers what happened at the end of last year, if you don't think this Packers team remembered how close they played the Bears in that first game, you are sadly mistaken. This is around the time teams start to show you who they are. And the Bears, unfortunately for the Packers, are showing they are better than some of the underlying metrics will tell you that they have been, at least, or they are capable of being better. Again, I think the Eagles are cantilevered on the brink. And I think 1 or 2 more bad games. I mean, the Boo Birds were out in Philly in the first half. I think that is an offense that is much easier to stop than the one Green Bay plays. And I think that is a defense, because of the static nature of what they do, that can be easier to exploit. I don't think Caleb Williams can come in and be, at one point, what was he? He was like 9 for 20 at one point. Caleb Williams is not coming to Green Bay and winning a football game if that's the passing line. It's just not happening. It's just not happening. These are the stakes you want in these games. And don't forget this. The first game Jordan Love played as the preferred starter in the NFL was in Chicago against the Bears, when the Bears fans thought it was all lining up for them. This was the year Justin Fields was going to take off. This was the year that they were taking back the North. It was over for the Packers. Jordan Love wasn't even going to be as good as Justin Fields. He wasn't even going to be as good as broken down Aaron Rodgers in 2022. Surprise! He gets up for these moments. And he's been playing at an extremely high level. If you ask me one reason I think the Packers are going to win on Sunday, and I do think the Packers are going to win on Sunday, it's that I think Jordan Love is going to play great. And I don't know how you could believe that Caleb Williams is going to play great. He plays well in the fourth quarter when it's more backyard football. It's got to drive Ben Johnson nuts that they're winning all these games and he can't tell Caleb Williams anything. In the second and third quarters, like, they're not very good. But you play the variance game. You run the ball. You get that one turnover. This is the profile of the kind of team like the Carolina Panthers, who, by the way, are the reason the Chicago Bears have the number 1 overall seed. This is the profile of a team. They can be opportunistic on defense. They can run the ball on offense. That can make this a 7-possession game, an 8-possession game. So you're going to have to be highly efficient with your offense. The Packers have to have a good plan ready, and they have to be willing to be aggressive again. That you can't go to Detroit and play to win and then come back home and play the Bears as the favorites. They were the underdogs in Detroit when Matt LaFleur historically is willing to be much more aggressive. You can't then go play the Bears and say, well, now we're going to play not to lose. No. Take the same approach that won you the game in Thanksgiving and apply it this week. NFL Sundays move fast. One play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, or it keeps you locked into and locked on every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
The Dallas Cowboys will play their biggest game of the season in Week 14.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast.
Landon, I gotta say, I mean, we've been doing a lot of podcasts together. You know that I generally don't get my hopes up with this team. Starting to feel it, buddy. Like it just.
Oh, wow.
It's one of these games where I feel like they can compete. I feel like they can win. And if you win this one, I don't know how the rest of the NFC playoff picture is going to shake out, but it'll feel like something special is happening here, which means they'll probably get blown out by 30 and our hopes will be all crushed.
Listen, I'm obviously a pretty famous hope merchant around here for sure. But I'll just say this. It's always going to be the same until it isn't. Until the day that it isn't. So, this could be the year that it isn't. Who knows? But yes, I think we don't need to take several steps ahead to be excited about what's going on. I think if we just look at the game that's in front of us, this is probably the most difficult of the remaining games that the Cowboys have.
This is the hardest game the rest of the way, I think, by far.
I think also if you just kind of contextualize it in the last couple of years, like the kind of monumental battles these two teams have had, one going the Cowboys' way early on, and then obviously being absolutely crushed like a bug underneath a boot on last season when they just dropped 40 points on you. I think that there's a lot of kind of things surrounding this game that, just between these two teams in the last few years, you add in the context of the playoff implications and just the way that this team has kind of turned things around for this season. And for Detroit, it feels like it's going the opposite direction, right? Like they have all these injury issues, and obviously we'll talk about that, but it's kind of turned their season sour. They had a tough loss on Thursday, which is kind of the opposite situation for the Cowboys. So it does feel like you could go into Detroit and steal a game that maybe early in the season felt like it would be impossible for the Cowboys to win. Now I feel like you look at all the kind of key elements, and again, we'll talk about it. I think the Cowboys maybe should be favorites to win this game.
They're not right now on FanDuel.
No.
They are 3-point underdogs. But let's talk about the Cowboys offense, because this has been a unit that's been their bread and butter all season long. They scored 31 points against the Chiefs last Thursday. They put up 24 against Philadelphia. You look at this Detroit defense, it's not the unit that it was a year ago. They've had a bunch of injuries, and I'll go through a couple of them right now. Terrion Arnold, their best corner, he's not going to be playing in this game. He actually just had shoulder surgery, so he's out for the year. Kirby Joseph, he's not going to play in this game. He just got back to practice. He had a DNP on Tuesday. Seems like they're going to hold him out. Their defensive line, they've had a bunch of injuries there. Aiden Hutchinson's still playing at a really high level, but this is a team that plays a ton of man coverage. And without Terrion Arnold, their outside corners are Amik Robertson, Rock Ya-Sin, DJ Reed, who can play in the slot and on the outside. This is a major advantage for the Cowboys offense.
Yeah, and DJ Reed himself also just coming back from an injury, I think maybe 2 weeks ago. Like I think last week may have been his first week back, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, again, like a beat up secondary. You mentioned it. A man coverage team that has lost, one of their main man cover guys, and then you add in the injury to Joseph. He's not going to be out there. So yeah, a beat up group that relies heavily on being able to bully wide receivers at the line of scrimmage. They don't quite have the same bullies that they had last
No,
year. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play it.
and that's what I wanted to mention. Amik Robertson, who I mean, I know well from covering the Raiders. He is maybe 5'8". He's 180 pounds. DJ Reed is another 5'9", barely 180-pound corner. Those are their two starters. Their biggest corner is Rock Ya-Sin, who's been in the league for a while now. He's 6'1", 195. And that's where you would think with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, like, yeah, these guys are aggressive and they're physical, but there's a massive size advantage here.
Yeah, no matter whether, I mean, look, they can, I imagine they might think about doing something like Rock Ya-Sin and Branch will double team Pickens, right? And then they'll do some combination stuff. But at some point, I mean, no matter what, you're gonna get a DJ Reed or a Robertson on CeeDee Lamb, on George Pickens. And not only the size advantage, but the athleticism advantage is going to be pretty serious. So it certainly is a path to victory for the Cowboys to find a way to throw the ball if they can block things up.
And that's going to be the key in this one, because they have Aiden Hutchinson, who played really well the last time they played him. And outside of that, it's just a bunch of guys. Now, they do have Tyleik Williams, who was a first-round pick. He's more of a run stopper. They've got some other guys that you might recognize their names, including Derek Barnes, Muhammad, who was on the Cowboys a couple of years ago. This feels like to me a game where you're chipping Aiden Hutchinson on almost every snap. You're putting two guys on him. You're sending out Tyler Smith, to block him on the edge, like what we've seen before, where he kind of peels around. If you block Aiden Hutchinson, this Lions team has a hard time rushing the passer with 4.
Yeah, and even Aiden himself is not quite had the last few weeks that he had earlier in the season. I think he's had something like 3 sacks in the last 5 games or something like that. So, and I think it's because that he's getting a lot of attention now, right? I do think that obviously he's an incredible top 3 defensive end in the league type player. But he's only one person, and there isn't a lot of other help for him along that line. I think McNeil is back, but I don't think he's not quite the same player as he was last year. I think he's still beat up from his injury, and they're not getting elite production from Davenport on the opposite side. So it's not hard to kind of to get some attention his way and block it up. And then again, like you mentioned, they play so much man coverage on the back end, they lose their top man cover guy. It's just, you're chipping away at those edges that they have on defense. And you're kind of taking away a lot of what made that defense special at certain points this year and last year.
One of the things I'm going to be interested in seeing is that Green Bay had almost no success running on early downs against the Lions on Thanksgiving. Can the Cowboys do it? I mean, Javonte Williams has been incredible this year. Their offensive line's a lot healthier than what Green Bay was. So if you can run the ball on early downs and get yourself into favorable down and distances where it's 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, and now you can use the play action. You don't have to be in these obvious passing situations. The Cowboys' run game is going to be massive if they want to win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, they've got DJ Reader, who's one of my favorite draft prospects of all time. They've got Williams, like we've talked about, a big guy from Ohio State, the rookie. They've got bodies inside, and we've already mentioned McNeil, right? Mm-hmm. Stopping the run is something that these guys can do. Jack Campbell and Anzalone are 2 incredible linebackers at coming downhill and stopping the run as well. So they certainly have the horses to do it. The Cowboys need to be able to run the football, right? They need to be able to stay balanced. But I think this very much opens up the opportunity for you to open up the run game by throwing the football. Get out there and throw the football on early downs, loosen things up a little bit, and maybe score some points, right? And then at that point, once you've gotten that going, you've gotten those safeties pushed back a little bit. Maybe you get a little bit better opportunity to run the football and kind of balance things out a little bit and try to run some clock down, because I think it's going to be important to not only score points but to control the clock as well.
This is not the most talented Detroit defense that we've seen over the last couple of years, but they are very aggressive in a good way. Like
Yep.
they play hard, they rally to the football. We shouldn't expect anything less from a Dan Campbell team. But I think the way that you beat them is by blocking it up and maybe doing more 7-man protections and letting Pickens and CD try to make plays down the field. It's a lot like Kansas City where, they're pretty good. Everybody's a pretty good tackler. They're going to try to keep everything in front of you. But if you can beat them over the top, that's how you create explosive plays. That's how you can win this game.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're going to win this game by throwing the football because
Yeah.
you have so strong advantages there, but you still need to find a way to get into situations where you can run the football as well. And again, I think this is an opportunity where attack them through the air, loosen things up, and then just control the clock after you get some points, try to play a little bit of keep away from the Detroit offense.
NFL Sundays move fast. One play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, or it keeps you locked into and locked on every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
Quarterback Daniel Jones is certainly not the problem for the Indianapolis Colts, but his injury is limiting some things on offense.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast.
The Colts dropped their second game in a row, fall to 8-4 after a 20-16 loss to the Houston Texans. The season seems to be spiraling. The fan base is about as doomer as it gets. We're going to give you our typical post-game rundown of the day after we had like a sobering look at this game and kind of removed a little bit from the emotion. So we're going to dive into Daniel Jones and his play on the afternoon. We're going to talk about the Colts offense aside from Jones and talk about this Colts defense as well. But Jake, to kick it off with Daniel Jones, I listened back to some of our some of our squad show from last night. And I think one thing I really want to correct myself on is I said that like Alec Pierce was the only guy who really showed up in this game. Alec Pierce, especially on offense, was the only guy who showed up and like deserved to win this game on offense. And I do want to put a correction. I think Daniel Jones played good enough football to win this game. And I really want to add him to that group, especially with the context of what he's playing through with that fracture in his leg. You could see there's some limitations. There's some mobility issues. But I thought he played a pretty good football game. Certainly there were some completions you want to have here and there that were missed. And there were, the offense in general was a bit sluggish to start the game. But I thought he made a couple of his best throws of the season, including a couple of like just outstanding shots to Josh Downs in this game. I thought they had a beautiful pass to the back of the end zone to Alec Pierce where Pierce got up and got his feet down. And I thought he played some pretty fearless football against one of the best defenses in the league. So I do want to start off this segment by saying I think Jones played better than I gave him credit for yesterday on the squad show. And I think he was certainly not a reason they lost this game. Again, you can nitpick some things, and everything we do with quarterbacks is under this like extreme microscope. But if we want to say this last month of the season hasn't been good for Jones, I would probably argue that what we saw on Sunday, especially given the competition that they just faced, the number one defense in the league, best defensive line in the league, just an outstanding secondary. I thought he played one of his better games that we've seen in a month plus from him, especially again with that injury he's dealing with. So for someone like me who's very critical of quarterbacks, I thought he played a pretty good game.
We love an accountable king. Look at you correcting yourself. I love it. No, I would agree. This has been just a not great month for the Colts, but this was Jones probably his best performance of that month. So it's a shame that it comes in a loss. But yeah, when I'm looking at it and you look at the context, I rewatched today. The completion percentage isn't great. The 51.9, that's, I'm going to assume, probably his worst one of this season. But there's a lot of again, there's context in that. There was, I don't know, like 4 drops probably. There was one where he just killed it and threw it at Tyler Warren's feet. A theme I'm really noticing, and this may be related to his lack of mobility right now, but with him just being relegated to like just being a drop back passer at the moment. They're throwing a lot of stuff between the numbers where the receiver is just not getting enough separation, and the defender is just ready to break it up. They're never further than an arm's length away from the route runner, and I think that's causing a lot of incompletions as well. So, if you look at last week against the Chiefs, they rarely pushed the ball downfield. I thought they were willing to go a little further in this one. You saw Jones target Pierce downfield like 3 or 4 times at least, and it largely went very, very well for them. He had the beautiful throw to Josh Downs on the sideline. So I think they can make this work with the play action game and, still targeting downfield. You have the best deep threat in the game right now. And the fact that he is tall and has a huge catch radius is always going to be incredibly invaluable for them. We've talked about you can get Tyler Warren a little more involved in the downfield game as well. I think he had a chunk play to Michael Pittman on an end breaker. Like this, I think if he's going to be limited to not running the bootlegs and getting out and throwing on the run and stuff, and it's just like play action, drop back, take what the defense is giving you, I do think it can work. Like you said, I think he played well enough to win yesterday. There was just a lot of stuff that went along with the offense that, it just didn't allow them to. And to give Houston credit, obviously, as well, this was the number 1 defense in yardage and points coming in. It just feels like this game is just another clunker on top of what we've seen in the last month. But when you look at it, it wasn't the worst performance against, again, the number 1 defense in the league. So you have to consider your opponent in this one as well. It's not like when they were facing, the Steelers. The Steelers defense had done nothing coming into that matchup. The Chiefs defense was beatable. Honestly, if their game plan against the Texans is what they tried to execute against the Chiefs, I think it would have gone a whole lot better. You know what I mean? Now that was a tale of 3 quarters versus the final one, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with Jones, and I think it was an encouraging performance given what the offenses looked like in the last month and what we know he's dealing with physically.
Yeah, I think the only discouraging aspect of his performance is not really necessarily him. It's more of what his injury does to the offense. It has taken away a lot of their layups and their easy buttons, just because the play action boot game was so massive to start the season. And we've seen Tyler Warren kind of hit a bit of a rookie wall in the last couple of weeks, as well as dealing with this injury. So he hasn't been as effective after the catch, or he's not dealing with the injury. He's dealing with the stomach bug that he had on Sunday, which we'll talk about in segment 2. I think he was certainly ailing from that in this game. So it's taken away a lot of their easy buttons. Getting Jones on the move with those RPRs and RPOs just aren't really in the game plan right now. And again, just no more boot action, which was so effective. I think they ran 2 bootlegs in this game, and one of them was the touchdown to Tyler Warren, and the other one was the throwback pass to Jonathan Taylor. So the times they ran it were very effective. They just can't run it as efficiently because their quarterback has a fracture in his leg. So the Colts need to find more easy buttons, whether it's getting quick screens involved, whether it's finding more underneath things just to get back into third and manageable, because for as good as I think Jones played on Sunday, and they converted a couple 3rd and 8+ for the first time in a couple weeks as well, which I thought was very encouraging. Notably, a couple nice throws down the field to Josh Downs. You don't want to be in that situation very often. Again, especially with a quarterback dealing with this injury. So I think they need to find better ways to win on the early downs. They tried to lean on the run game early, and it was getting absolutely stuffed. They just were not winning at the point of attack, and Taylor was making some weird reads and going backwards on a couple times. So, they need to find an easy button now, because they essentially lost their best easy button in the play action boot game and the RPO game because of the injury that Jones is having. So that's my biggest discouraging takeaway with the offense is they have new limitations placed on them with this injury. Now they need to do some soul searching and figure out new ways to move the ball forward and become that very good first down team again, because I don't know what the ceiling of this offense can be without being effective on first down. I think that goes for all offenses in football, but especially when you have a hampered quarterback, you need to be able to get into these 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s versus 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 12s when defenses can pin their ears back. So that's the bigger concern. But overall, I think Jones played a good game, and again, I said this is one thing from the squad show that I will stand by. Is we're talking about a very different outcome if Josh Downs doesn't drop that ball on third down. Like I almost certainly think they win that game if Downs doesn't drop that ball, or at least they get the lead there. We'll see if the Colts defense would have held the lead after that, but I think they get the lead on that drive if Downs doesn't drop that football. They would have been in, at worst, 4th and 2, probably convert that first down if he doesn't drop it. And we're looking at a potential touchdown drive to take that lead. So Jones had them on the move. He played some good ball. I'm not too concerned about the quarterback right now, even with his injury. There are just kind of some other concerns on this roster for me right now.
Yeah, and something encouraging, but also kind of makes you want to pull your hair out. In the last 2 games, they're 0-2, but 1 sack, 0 turnovers. So that's encouraging that they're about to turn the corner, but at the same time, Rick, how do you lose both games in that instance? But
a big part of that is, I think, 5 3-and-outs in those 2. That's a big part of how you lose it. So yes, no turnovers are great. You'd rather if you had to put the 2 against each other, I'd rather have a 3-and-out than a turnover. But still, a 3-and-out is almost as bad as a turnover. At least, like, field position wise, it's not as bad. But a 3-and-out is pretty awful for your offense. So find ways to move the ball. But I do like they're taking care of the football. The sack issue was not a bit like 1 sack against Houston's defense, where they just came off a game where they had 8 against Buffalo.
And it was Sheldon Rankins. They didn't even let Hunter Anderson had a great game, but they didn't let Anderson and Hunter wreck the game.